Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Schlage number 30-001C, inch and an eighth, 626. This is very possibly the most common mortise cylinder from Schlage there is. This is what's going to be packaged, basically, or at least, depending on the trim ring, what sectional or escutcheon trim you're using. But when you remove the compression collar and the wave washer, I mean, this is just an inch and an eighth mortise cylinder. The 30-001 is going to give us the L583-475, and that's the cam that you're going to use in almost all lock functions from Schlage. Not all. You want to refer to the catalog. It's unusual that you would have the odd function. It might be a hotel function. I simply don't recall, but we'll look. 6-pin, brass construction, original Schlage keys. That's a 35-101 key. It has direct bitting on it. It's the Classic C Keyway that's been around, I think, since 1935. Fun fact, it's the opposite. It's drawn the opposite of the Best A Keyway. An engineer from Best came over to Schlage. He liked the A Keyway so much he drew the reverse, and it became the perennial C Keyway. That's how that came to life. I know that on first-hand knowledge from a gentleman who worked at Schlage for many, many years, and a LOA certified master locksmith, and definitely possesses an expert working knowledge of the history of many components related to Schlage, including how the name is correctly pronounced. So, inch and an eighth, how is that measured? Let's talk about that right now. Almost all mortise cylinders are measured from the underside of the head to the back of the cam. This is an inch and an eighth mortise cylinder. Okay, almost all. Best does it differently for some reason. The underside of the head to the back of the brass body is what they define as the length of the cylinder. I've put a lot of thought into that. I can only determine, and I've spoken to Best why they do it that way, and frankly, they didn't know. But my opinion, it might have everything to do with the perspective that the factory would bring to the lock, how to assemble it, based on the door thickness and as a result the length of the mortise cylinder. Also based on where in the door you're centering the lock. It doesn't have to be in the center. It can be biased. You can have a 2 3/4 thick door, and you're going to kick that out. You know, you're going to apply a 1-inch panel on the secure side of the door, the secured side of the door. So you need a cylinder that'll basically be 1 inch longer. And I think that they probably do that for purposes of manufacturing. They might just say, you know what, I know how thick the cam is. Just tell me the length of the brass body. Whereas other people, most, if not all other people except Best, want to call it to the back of the cam. I prefer the back of the cam only because, well, I guess we're all trained to think of it that way, but as you install that into the cylinder, it might be okay to have that cam in the center of the thickness of the body, the center of the cam itself. So my point is, whatever that dimension is, let's say it would be 7/8 on an 1 3/4 thick door, I would rotate that counterclockwise a revolution or two to get a 1/16 shy of that. Just leave it shy of the center line of the door. And if I've got cylinders back to back, that formula works for me. And then once you've got an idea of what the raw length of the cylinder must be from the underside of the head to where you want the back of the cam, you can then say, okay, how much am I going to lose for whatever I'm sticking underneath the head of the cylinder? How much am I going to actually lose there? You're probably going to pick up another 1/8 of an inch. So when we get to, a hard dimension, well, it'll be more than that on this. It'll be 5/16 more likely. You'll get that head of the cylinder basically flush with the compression collar and the thickness of that. 1/8 of an inch if you're using a trim ring or a cylinder guard, whatever the thickness is. But this ring is basically 5/16. It's 0.307. So 1 3/4 thick door. I'm going to want a raw cylinder length of just shy on 7/8, literally 13/16. I'm going to add this 5/16, and now I'm at 13/16 plus 5/16. I'm at 1 1/8. The math works up perfectly. And the only time you need to really play with that is when you are doing an unusual door thickness or an unusual application within that door. Generally, you won't have a lock biased in a standard 1 3/4 thick door. But you can get a Mortise lock, a Schlage Mortise lock installed onto an 1 3/8 door. Yeah, the cylinder needs to get shorter. 1 3/8 minus 1 3/4 minus 1 3/8. 3/8 of an inch divided by 2, 3/16. Yeah, the cylinder is going to need to be 15/16 in order for that to work in that sort of scenario. But nowadays I get clients that toss us lock applications that they're simple after you've gone through it a couple of times, but where the door is an unusual thickness and where they're installing the lock in relationship to the center of the door is also unusual. What happens is it starts out as a standard door, but then they're adding something. The push side, the pull side, etc. So once you determine what side is affected, that's the side that you need to think about. If it's an in-swing door and you're adding material on the secured side, the key side, you need to think about the length of the cylinder. You need to think about the length of the spindle getting into the lock hub to drive the trim. If you're installing it on the pull side of the door, if the pull side is the unusual thickness, you need to think about the length of the spindle, possibly the length of the thumb turn if the function requires it. And you don't want to forget the length of the lip of the strike will have to change as well. You need an extended lip strike. And one thing that is taught by a particular instructor from in DHI from Canada, he's from the Prince Edward Island area. His great advice is just, if you're in the door hardware industry as a distributor, read the installation instructions. You're doing yourself a great service. Read those, understand them as best you can at that moment in time. Look at the template. Look at the installation instructions and the template. If you're doing it long enough, after a couple of years, certain things are going to start to strike you as, wait a minute, that strike, the latch bolt's going to hit the casing. Or I should say, the lip of the strike is not long enough to get past what I've added to the door thickness. So this is a super common Mortise cylinder. It's in the 626 finish. The C Keyway is part of their classic group of 7 Keyways: C, E, CE, F, EF, G, FG. Multiplex structure, and we'll look at that in just a moment, and we'll talk about why you might use that. Let's switch to the screen view now and continue on. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, here's the item that we're looking at. Let's take a close look at the images that we have. 30001, 6-pin, 626 inch and an eighth. When you order a cylinder, you have to specify not only the part number, because that will tell the manufacturer more about what you expect in terms of perhaps a default cam. With Sargent, it will also potentially tell you the length of the Mortise cylinder itself. You have to declare the keyway. This is C. You have to declare any keying or the organization. This is clearly just sent out as keyed differently. So there's just a random code. In the 6-pin system, there are 4,096 theoretical possible keys. And after max loss, depending on what the key cut is, you're going to have a lot less theoretical keys than 4,096. 4,096 is basically 6 to the 4th power. And why it's 6 to the 4th power is a different conversation. A 5-pin cylinder has 1,024 possible changes. It's 5 to the 4th power. Why is it the 4th power? Again, a different conversation. Schlage is a 2-step system, so if you've got 10 depths, you're going to take one of the depths out for the TMK. You'll be left with 4 depths because you have to go every other depth. That's why it's to the power of 4. The 48101, if I recall, has something to do with the composition of the key blank. I think tech support at Schlage told me it just means it's nickel silver. Is what I think that is. Here's what you've got in the box. Very handsome, well-manufactured product. OEM, C Keyway. 1 in 5/32 diameter. That's a 32 thread per inch. That's called ultrafine. You'll have 32 threads per inch on Mortise cylinders because you're generally threading them into something that's very thin, so you need the maximum amount of contact with the cylinder and the wall thickness of what you're threading it into. Here's their standard cam. Some people call it the beaver tail cam. Schlage's gotten more complicated nowadays. Well, even a gentleman who worked at Schlage would lament if they would just stop changing things. This is a modular system. This cam is not going to work on all lengths. There's a different part number for a different cam. You can remove the cylinder, you can remove the cam. This is what would be modular. Those millings in the side of the profile, that's what your set screw is going to seat into to prevent that from turning. Your compression collar and wave washer, you can see why they might call it a wave washer. And then, I'm showing you the cylinder collar installed on the face of the cylinder. There are your two original keys stamped C. Schlage has lots of keyways. They also have the reverse of their classic 7 keyways. I don't recall what they're called. They may be lettered keys, and they're restricted. You can order them, but there's order minimums, and you have to submit paperwork. If you want a key that you're not just going to get cut at the local cobbler or home improvement center, you might want to look into something a bit more restricted. It doesn't have to be as far as very high technology, very modern technology, where it becomes extremely pick resistant, extremely drill, tamper, and brute force resistant. The regular stuff will probably work. That's what I have. I just have an unusual keyway that, you've got to put some work into it to copy my key. In general, that's how I do it. Where I need to have the key prevented from being duplicated, yes, we can do that. Schlage can do that with their Everest, with their Primus, with their Everest Primus, where they hybrid the technologies together. The extended description is here. 1 1/8 mortise cylinder, everything that we've talked about. Let's click on the cut sheet here. This is going to show us, well, it touches on, doesn't really apply, but it touches on, the concept of multiplexing. So we won't dwell on this. This is appropriate for the Everest, the original classic Everest, in fact, not Everest 29. You've got different keyways and then multi-section and all-section key blanks. Let's look at the quick reference guide. Okay, this is a very handy document because it's a cheat sheet of part numbers for cylinders. Standard. This document predates the modular system, but otherwise we would be looking at, a 30-021. Their part numbers also change when the keyway changes as well. I use this document all the time because I don't remember part numbers of key blanks. And all of the key blanks are on this document, along with the classic 7 Schlage keyways. Here's our opposite of A keyway, our C keyway. There is a image down below showing that as well. This is for Everest. It doesn't apply because we're doing a C keyway. I'll actually have them remove that from here. I might leave it. It's helpful to see what a multiplex system. Since I've said the word multiplex, what would happen is, as I said earlier, you get 4,096 theoretical changes out of a single keyway. Well, what happened if you had, and you're not going to net that. You're going to net 3,000 something, depending on how you put it together. You could have a substantial loss. Or if you're doing other things in the keying system, like a selective key, or you have a situation where there's tremendous max loss, where you can't use those keys, you could really lose a lot of biddings. Or if you need to create a master key after the system is set up and you choose to think of it as a selective key, you'll lose lots of biddings. Well, one way to sidestep that, and why they have different keyways, is so that you can take all the biddings from this keyway, put them all in here. This key won't go here, this key won't go here. You want a key that passes all of them, it's the C100. So 3 floors in a building, let's use this here. First floor, second floor, third floor. Well, the engineer walks around with this key. He can go anywhere. That's the point of that. You'll get over 12,000 theoretical changes in this sort of small system. A school is definitely going to run out of changes, or a school district will run out of changes when it's just 4,096. Yeah. Right. Okay. There's a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Schlage products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog, and then several encyclopedic documents. I'm just zooming out to show you. All of these are encyclopedic documents. There's dozens of them. Service manuals, templates, parts indexes. The master service manual is here. That's extremely handy, etc. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, in conclusion, if you have any questions on the Schlage, this is their part number 30-001C Keyway, or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. Schlage does an exceptional job when it comes to tech support. There's a particular tech support rep that's there that is exceptionally helpful, and to her for that I say thank you very much. Any questions on the 30-001 in a C Keyway or any other Schlage product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.